And I'll start this recording with, I love the red, Anouk, it looks great.
Thank you. It's all about personal branding. Okay, great. Well, so what we discussed, what is an interesting idea to start with is kind of like, okay, who's Michelle? So it's really the story about, we call that the meeting story. So it's meeting Michelle, someone who doesn't know you, someone who has no idea. I mean, we know your job title, but this is really about, okay, how did you end up where you are and where do you see yourself going tomorrow? So maybe you can just start.
Free flow. I'm just going to free flow, and then that way we'll probably have way more than we need, but at least you'll have that. And so I'll start the journey. I'm going to go back a little far, but I promise you I won't make it too long. But I'll start with my upbringing. So brought up in a very close-knit family, but a single parent home. My mother was 17 when I was born. My father was 17 when I was born. And so very young parents. So I'm the oldest of two. I have a younger sister, but I was my mother's sort of right hand. I'm a latchkey kid. And so I grew up really fast and just really being very in tune with my mother's struggle. From that, as I reflect on my upbringing, I think it's where a lot of resiliency comes in, watching my mom as she navigated challenges, you know, as if she was swatting flies. She just worked it out. And I learned that from her. She was adventurous, courageous, brave, resilient. And so as I fast forward to, you know, college and life after college. And so I've always been this person who was open to just being challenged, solving problems, trying new things. And again, I just relate that to things that I saw my mother doing. I relate that to the village, really propping me up on this pedestal, the village of being the first to go to college, to graduate. So there were a lot of people just really supporting, grandparents, neighbors, aunts, uncles, cousins, who were really invested in ensuring that I sort of got out. And then, you know, my sister and younger cousins that I got out. And so I stand on some incredibly strong shoulders that is really my guiding star, right? Whenever there are those moments of, whoa, do I have this? Can I do this? I'm reminded of the shoulders that I stand on. So I started my career. So my formal training is as a chemical engineer. And so I started my career out of college. I actually got the taste of engineering and chemical engineering from my high school counselor. And she sort of introduced it to me, helped me get a job as a high schooler at a chemical company that was right in my backyard. So anyway, formal training as a chemical engineer. I worked in the chemicals industry immediately following college for many years. As a process engineer, a business analyst, a product manager in that field. And it was during that time, that company sent me to grad school. So I was able to get an MBA so that I could bring sort of that technical experience in the business, marry the two. And it was at that same time that I decided I was ready to start a family. I didn't have many examples of a full-on career married mom. And I couldn't see the intersection of all of that. And I couldn't see myself doing all of those as well as I wanted to do them. A working mother and wife, I just couldn't see that. And so it was during that time, and I had so many people at the company I was working with who were just in my corner, who invested in me. They sent me to grad school, had big dreams for me and at the company. But I decided I needed to off-ramp for a little while. And so I off-ramped and started my own business at the same time. so that I could prepare for, I was married at the time, but prepare for the family. So it was in that off-ramp time that I started my very first business, so to speak. My husband and I had dibbled and dabbled in real estate and other things, but it was a well thought out plan that I had worked on for more than a year, on a business plan, investors, etc. So I got the taste of entrepreneurship early on, and that is where, and I searched high and low to fill a gap. Even back then, I was focused on customer experience. I was focused on filling a need or a gap that lined up with something that my creative juices, my technical juices, how could I do that? But how could I do that in a way with the customer in mind?
Yeah.
And so started a communications, retail, stationery business right in Midtown Atlanta. Terrified on what I was undertaking, but I was ready to go. And so I did that for about 5 years, had my babies along the way, sparked up some other entrepreneurial ventures, even in that 5 year period. But that one was the main thing. And for a little while, after about 5 years, I decided to sell the business and just focus on my kids. My kids were so very young, and I was finding myself not being able to juggle all the glass balls at the standard and level at which I wanted to. So I off-ramped even from entrepreneurship for a little while and was just laser focused on being a wife and mom. And so fast forward, at some point, I decided it was time for me to re-enter corporate. My kids had gotten older, had become a little more dependent or independent, I should say. And so I on-ramped back into corporate, and that's how I found myself at AT&T. I have been on an incredible journey at AT&T and have been the benefactor of some amazing support, but I have not lost sight of the value of small businesses, the customer experience. I have walked a mile in the shoes of someone who has struggled, right, with starting a small business, sustaining a successful small business, being told no, trying to find partners, all of the things that small business owners face. And so I've never lost sight of that. And I've always had that sort of ingrained on me personally. And so while I've been focused at AT&T on this incredible journey, I still find passion around small businesses, investing in small businesses, really appreciating the value and the role that they play in society. Yeah. And so I find myself here at AT&T 15 years now, believe it or not, 2 teenage boys, 1 elf in college. And have had what I consider to be a successful journey, but still very much passionate about small business owners or small business in general and the customer experience. It is the lifeblood of any business. So I hope that helps. I know that's a lot. I tried to shorten it up, but that's the journey I've been on.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that you have these different perspectives. So from an entrepreneurial small business perspective, working for one of the largest corporations in the world. And we talked about your next goal, and your next goal is, let's say, in a few years, becoming the head of administration for small businesses, which is something you need to be elected for. Mm-hmm. And we cannot talk about that yet, which is fine. But is there something we can add here saying, okay, having all that experience in corporate as an entrepreneur, etc., that's something that you would like to leverage or to use, let's say, for the benefit of small businesses, to support small businesses? I mean, of course, within AT&T has a lot of small business clients, of course, as well. I mean, probably millions of them. So is there a connection we can make here between, let's say, how you got between your journey so far and slightly looking in your journey, the next part of your journey?
Yeah, I think there is. I consider myself to be big on partnership experience, customer experience. My customers at AT&T being employees are my internal customers. Oftentimes my teams that I engage with and consider them to be partners, I also consider them to be customers as well. And I've always been successful at prioritizing those relationships such that I'm seen as a trusted partner. Relationships where I've had people tell me, watch out for this person, they're going to make your life so difficult. And I've found those relationships to be some of those that people warn me about are the ones that I've had some of the best relationships and partnerships with, because I take just the I out of it and figure out how do we make for the best, a collaboration and a partnership and a relationship where it's not about me, where we're all benefiting. And I honestly think, Anouk, that has served me and my ability to go from being a lowest ranking manager coming into the business and now a level 5, so level 1 to level 5. But not only that, seeing so many different parts of the business. I've been in product management, I've been in marketing and customer service, corporate strategy, corporate communications, all of these different places in the business, sales, operations, HR now, because I have prioritized that customer experience. And you can define your customer in so many different ways. And so when I think about, that sort of intersection or that overlap in what AT&T does, whether it be our actual external customer, if you can't get your internal interactions and relationships and customer relationships right, you will not be able to seize the success, sustainable success with your external customers if you can't get the internal focused and right. And so anyway, that's how I think about it. I think about it from an employee standpoint. I think about it from a true buying customer standpoint. They are very much interconnected. So, and you can define, there are multiple dimensions to it in terms of how you define that internal customer, the employee, et cetera. But they're definitely connected.
Yeah. Okay. Arushi, what do you think? We have enough?
Yes, I think we have enough. We've got kind of like a timeline from your upbringing up until now. And I think we have your kind of outlook on how you work and how you function and how you work with people. And I think that'll add a lot to the story. So I think we're good.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll mention, and I didn't mention this, is in the upbringing. I talked a lot about my mom, but there were entrepreneurs subconsciously for me at the time, all around me. My father, though he didn't live with us, was an entrepreneur, a hustler, always trying to figure out how to, turn something, make money out of something. My grandfather worked was a blue collar worker, but he always had a side gig in the neighborhood. He was making something, fixing something, and people saw him as that person to come and fix something or make something or solve a problem that was another revenue generating thing. And so I think it was embedded in me early on. I didn't realize it and didn't know it, but I think that's also worth mentioning as part of the upbringing.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Saginaw, Michigan, mid-Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah. So Midwest.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, if we talk about small businesses, one of your ambitions is to support small businesses, especially those owned by and operated by minorities.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about this again, that's the goal in a few years, and we're not talking about it not very concrete, but what kind of support, insights, knowledge do you bring, and what puts you in the right position actually to support small businesses going forward?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, as you stated, the focus and emphasis on minorities in business, being a minority, having walked a mile in the shoes of a minority business owner, and some of the struggles that you face not having resources necessarily available to you. I recognize that that is not unique to just minorities. I recognize that those who are in the majority have those same struggles. Some can have those same struggles. What I will tell you, though, is those examples of what it takes to build a sustainable business, and actually seeing that and being up close and personal to that, seeing those examples are much farther and fewer between in a minority community. Um, I will also say that support system, that village, again, not something that's unique to minorities, but I will say that support system is also farther and fewer between in a minority community. And I define support system as, those people who are there championing for you, being able to coach and provide guidance and advice. I think about myself as a woman. Oftentimes, the woman is the breadwinner in my community, oftentimes. And so to think that you can step out of a traditional path and put your household at risk and take that risk, it's hard. It's harder in that community. And so having walked a mile in those shoes, I believe that I am credible and somebody who can speak to those struggles and those pains. I think the reason why I had some success was because of the resiliency from my upbringing and this persistent desire to want to succeed, to at least give it a try, to be willing to fail, and to ignore and quiet that strong doubt and fear that not only you have, that you build up in your head with self-talk, but from others in the village who just don't get it because they haven't seen examples. And so you all of a sudden are alienated, and you can find yourself trekking this path alone because people are, you're crazy, what are you doing? You need to seek medical attention, all of that, right? So when you quiet your own noise, you quiet the noise of the village, which is what I was able to do to a certain degree. It helped propel me. But oftentimes they don't have that wherewithal. And so you have that phenomenon that happens. The other thing I will say is that oftentimes the small business owner is sort of the doer, right? And they don't have the resources or the exposure to lifting themselves out of the doing and the gifts and talents that they have that they're sharing or selling so they can have a business, to operating a business, and those resources and that exposure and that learning and that development that's needed to think critically about how to operate a business, the financial acumen, the operations in general, the strategic partnering, all of that is so critical. And again, the business owner is often heads down in that community doing, and it's hard for them to build a scalable business because the heads down doing, right? And so there's some of that phenomenon as well that I think the minority businesses tend to suffer from more so than others. And then the last and third thing I'll say is just funding and support in the way of those institutions who have the resources earmarked for small business owners. Oftentimes, if that business owner isn't equipped with a rock solid business plan with resources or their investment in the business, which oftentimes is the case, then you find those organizations or those institutions who have funding to help propel that business. Oftentimes they're just left out of getting the access because one, they're not necessarily equipped as an operator with the infusion of capital that they need in order for that institution to be willing. So I think there's also a trust factor from those institutions who have the resources to invest. So there's investment, there's just to recap, there's the lack of investment, there is the critical aptitude to strategically running an operation and a business. And then there's just the support in the village. And I've experienced all of that and so much more, but those are the three themes that I see, and I believe that makes me a credible voice and representative, and what drives my passion, quite frankly, what drives my passion.
So we could use that, or you could use that, let's say, to help, to mentor, to support, to really explain and, let's say, inspire as well business owners or people who are thinking about starting a business but who fear these things and say, well, I'm not even going to start. And by getting your guidance or reading or getting inspired by you, they might decide to take the leap anyhow. Yeah. And then looking forward, let's say when you will be in that role, then you can actually, I mean, you have resources, you can do all kinds of things to really help people take those steps and take it to the next level.
Yeah. I want to ask your advice, and I know I want to be mindful of time. So I'm grappling with how much to play up AT&T, because AT&T is making a big investment in trying to build its partnership or its ecosystem of suppliers, diverse suppliers. And so is this the right forum to talk about that? And quite frankly, I don't run that. I just know that we have a lot of efforts there. The other thing that I'm grappling with is I have my own nonprofit organization that I just started this year that is focused on helping women in business. Oh. And so then I don't want, so I've got this war because I don't want there to be a conflict of interest if I'm talking about AT&T and any of this. And if I'm using this in AT&T forums, I don't want to be trying to prop up nonprofits. Should I just leave those out altogether? Both the nonprofit organization, which is called aboutmysistersbusiness.org, and AT&T's investment. Is it safer to leave that out?
I don't know yet, because I think, thinking out loud, it could be an interesting add-on, maybe even in your first story, because I think the second story, to me, it's well-rounded and it's a clear, let's say, beginning, middle, and end. So I think that's clear. But maybe in the first story where we talked about, this, you being an entrepreneur and working for this large company, and then saying, well, actually, it's all coming together, because having that NGO and working with a company that is investing a lot in minorities and helping people set up businesses and diverse suppliers, that could be a nice ending, let's say, to that first story, where we kind of make the point that things are changing, that needles can be moved, whether it's from you as, let's say, as an individual setting up this non-for-profit and supporting sisters, but also big companies investing and making a statement. I think it could be a nice win-win, let's say, where they're not conflicting.
Yeah.
But where we have these proof points, again, also to inspire others. Because wouldn't it be great if, for example, by this story, you inspire, you do this for AT&T, but by reading this, someone reads this and they say at, I don't know, American Express, wow, this is a great story. We should do something like this as well. So yeah, I think the ultimate goal is sharing your stories and making a bigger impact. whether that's
Yeah.
by inspiring others, let's say a business
That's the
owner.
ultimate goal. Yeah. And however we get there. Yeah. That's the ultimate goal.
I think we can integrate those. So I don't know if we can find something on the website, or if we have some documentation about the things that AT&T is doing that you could share with us.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, let me make myself a note. I will send that to you.
And your NGO, if we have something about that, then we can just write a few lines about it in the story.
Okay. Yeah, I can, my nonprofit, I was gonna say I can drop that in the chat. Okay, that's there.
Arushi, do you agree that that would be a good place to put it?
Absolutely. And I think we should definitely talk about my sister's business, because I love the name. Just
Oh,
out there, I absolutely love the name, and I think it's always interesting to talk about your own initiative and what you've started, and that'll definitely add to the story, add to your personal brand.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the website as we speak.
Well, we'll find some lines and we'll add that.
Yeah.
okay.
Because also I don't want to rush, but we have a big meeting at 1:30, so we need
Oh,
to.
okay. Yeah. And then I think, yeah, you know, if I have to send some of this in email, maybe I could, and I'm open to another session, and I know that might cost more, but I'm open to that because I know it's my fault that we're late.
No, but that's fine. I think with the input, you know, we write a first draft and then we'll have another session in any case to discuss. So that's going to be fine. That's no problem. So let's go to the next one, which is really about this customer experience and employee experience. They're interrelated, and of course, one doesn't survive without the other.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there again, this nice contrast between a large corporate and a small business. And like you were saying, I mean, my employees now are my customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can talk a little bit about this, what's the common ground, let's say, between the two, and how do they reinforce each other or benefit from each other? So the employee and the customer, where do they meet?
Yeah, I can put that one really simple. Close this. That's a really simple one for me. I am a big believer that unless you've experienced unless you've had a really good experience as an employee, it is not until then that you know what a good customer experience looks like. If you are okay, or you settle for broken internal systems that, that aren't as simple as they could be, that aren't frictionless, that aren't built with you in mind, if you settle for that, then you will push that off onto your customer, whether you're a frontline customer, whether your customer is an employee. You will start with, well, it's how our system's designed, and so and so I'm a big believer that if you can't get that right and really truly show your employees, and not just talk about it, but really show them what it looks like, you can't deliver, that stellar, best in class pillow talk where, your your customers are talking about it with their spouses as they go to bed at night. Like, you can't deliver that. I'm a big believer that you can't deliver that if you're the people who are expected to deliver it aren't experiencing it themselves.
No.
So it's just something I'm super passionate about. And like I said, passionate about so much so that it's a big part of who I am internally. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's a big investment of time. but it just pays dividends
Yeah.
on the other side. That investment pays, recurring dividends. And so it's that simple connection.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think what we,
I hope that helps.
yeah, I think what we can do here, Arushi, is that we, I mean, this is a phenomenon or something which is, of course, which is more broad. So I'm sure we can find some articles on the internet, etc., that talk to this as well, and we can integrate that. So I think that's nice. So
and I have a couple too I can send to you.
Okay, great.
It's something that I research and I preach.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So that is an easy one indeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. And then we have the last one, which is a really interesting one as well, because you've been working in leadership development for quite some time. And as you told me last time, only recently you also acquired, let's say, the talent management, talent strategy part, which for a lot of people, they're two separate things, but for you, it's really, let's say, they really belong together. They go together. So talk to us about how they work together, how they can influence each other.
Yeah.
How leadership development on one hand and talent strategy, how they have to go hand in hand.
Yeah, I can talk about it, and it's becoming the marriage, and the excitement about the marriage continues to grow. And so again, the reason why this one excites me is because I think about our employees. I think about our employees who, I mean, if you think about, I think I saw the stat where 90 something percent, I think it's 94%, I think it was a LinkedIn stat, 94% of employees leave a business because they don't feel like the company is invested in their development. And so AT&T has a storied history in investing in programming and leadership development for its employees. But you can overwhelm employees so much so that they throw their hands in towel, they throw the towel in, or if it's not simple, or if supervisor's not engaged, leadership's not talking about it, if it's not a priority, then they will fill their lives up and their plates up with the things that their leader is talking about, focused on, and that plethora of resources and programming that we've designed, it just gets ignored. And that's where we find ourselves. And so we've navigated for so long with leadership development experiences, sort of peanut butter spread where everybody, one size fits all for everybody. We've navigated that way with that. By the same token, we've had this talent strategy and talent development organization who has been laser focused on a smaller population of talent that's been deemed top talent, that we're sort of preparing to succeed, existing leaders and executives, that sort of diverse talent that we want to make sure that we've deemed top talent that you don't want to leave behind. And so you've got that activity there, but they have never been connected. They have never been, they've been under the same sort of executive, but they've never been intentionally approached with purpose, cohesion, synergistically. They just never have. And it just makes for a very confusing, disjointed, disparate employee experience. And so for me, I will tell you what I'm most proud or excited about, I should say, is making, starting with our strategy, being more transparent about what that strategy is so that people can figure out if they're willing to compete, right? Using the same taxonomy, right? We shouldn't be planning for succession planning over here using a litmus test that's different from what we're using over here. So getting us all aligned so that we're talking from the same song sheet, we're more overt about it. And then we are sharing resources in a way where when we get that taxonomy aligned, whatever we're doing for the masses, there should be some linkage to what we're doing for that population that we've deemed top talent or succession planning worthy. And then there's the last piece I'll say is we have to bring the employee along. We have to set expectations such that they have to be in the driver's seat. We can't continue navigating and taking an approach where we allow our employees to take a passive backseat, passenger seat approach and just wait for whatever you're going to deliver me. I'll decide whether I want to engage or not. And we have to help them understand what's in it for them. And so those are the reasons where why I'm really excited about it. It's just, and it's no ding to the people, who have been leading these. I mean, they've brought some really cutting edge, provocative experiences into our business. And like I said, AT&T is a big investor in its people. It's just time to evolve it and take it to the next level. And that's what I'm excited about this time, this season, and being trusted to take it to the next level.
Yeah, great.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. I think so. Archie?
For sure, yes. And we actually got a lot of input for this one, so that's good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, well, I think that's good. It seems like we rushed a little bit, but actually the third and fourth question were easier. Let's say the first one, of course, where you have your story, etc. That takes longer, which is good because we need that to figure out what are the interesting elements, the parts from your story that we think play a role in you moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's why we needed some more input there. And it's always great to listen to someone's personal story. So that's that's nice. So I think if you agree with me, Arushi, we have enough input to start writing the first draft. So we'll do that. If you can send us some research or some articles about the customer and the employee experience. If you can send us some input about the initiatives that AT&T is taking with regards to diverse suppliers.
Yeah, I sure can. I'll get that to you today.
We have your website. I think then we have what we need to start writing.
Okay.
And we'll do that. And then Arushi, I'm looking at you. When do you think we can send the first, maybe end of next week or early the week after?
Yeah, maybe the first 2 stories end of next week, and then we can do the next 2 the week after, if that's okay.
Oh.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect.
Love it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for sharing some of your stories. And I'm sure we'll be hearing much more, and we'll send it to you, and we'll set up then a meeting, I think then in the week of, maybe we can take a look at our calendars.
Yeah, we can do that now, and I can block it and let my assistant know.
Yeah. Fridays are good for you, right?
Yes, Fridays are.
So why don't we go for Friday the 15th? So in 2 weeks from today. Arushi?
Perfect.
Friday the 15th. Friday the 15th is our annual employee resource group conference. It's that entire day. Okay. Is it possible that we could go the 22nd?
Yes. Yes, we can. That's one day after we did our AT&T session. But
Oh,
that
that's
doesn't
right.
matter. But that's fine because I'm not going to be using, let's say, the stories, but I'm just going to be talking about what we're doing with you, and maybe we highlight, but we're not going to be sharing stories anyway. So I was thinking we need to have them before that, but that's fine.
Okay.
We can do the 22nd.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You wanted to use it. Well, why don't we look at another day before, so if we go back to the 15th, let me look and see what time that actually starts, if you don't mind, and what time it ends. And then that way I can, we can see if maybe there's something on the other side, either starting sooner or later. Let me just look here real quick. I know we're coming up on, because I'm open to that.
And otherwise we can do the 22nd. I mean, again, I'm not going to share a whole story.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about your community, about your topics, etc. Why don't we just, I mean, you do your 15th. I mean, it's a day, it's an event. So
Okay.
why don't we just look at the 22nd?
Starts at 10 a.m. on the 15th and goes to 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm open. We can do the 22nd.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
Let's do that.
Okay. So on the 22nd, what works for you all? I've got a lot of flexibility on the 22nd.
Yeah, me too.
You want to do morning? You want to do same time?
Yeah. Arushi?
Yes, I don't have anything for that day currently. So
Okay.
whatever works best.
We'll say noon Eastern.
Perfect.
And Anouk, you'll send the invite like you did for this
Yes.
one. Okay, and then I'll block it and let Sheila know.